What does this series win mean to you personally?
It means a lot. I mean, we beat the best player in the world. I'm like the best player ever. So Rudy played phenomenal, man. He played almost 40 minutes tonight. 12 for 15 from the field. Yeah, we can't ask nothing. He had 24 rebounds.
Yeah. Good.
He was a dragon tonight. Rudy was the dragon. Yeah, he was a dragon tonight for sure. Yeah, for sure. Nah, he wasn't a dragon from Antarctica. No. He was a dragon from Game of Thrones tonight. Yeah, nah, he was incredible tonight. To answer your question. Yeah.
And before the playoffs started, right here, and right here, we had you mentioned to me that you wanted everybody to be talking about the Lakers. You saw everybody picking the Lakers. How does it feel now to emerge from this series victorious the way that you guys had, the way you did, and to prove those kind of people wrong?
You know what makes it feel even better is that they said Lakers in 5 and the Wolves won in 5. So I think that makes it feel 10 times better. That's like my only answer.
Can you please grab the mics when you answer the question, please?
They can't hear me?
No, they can hear you.
Who can't hear me? I don't care about the TV.
Put it back.
Days after copping fine, Anthony Edwards continues trash talk with fans after eliminating Lakers in gentleman's sweep. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a nice day before we begin the video. Please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. The Minnesota Timberwolves are moving on to the next round. Contrary to what some pundits thought, they only needed 5 games to take care of business and upset the LA Lakers. Most of the national media picked the Lakers to win the series, and some even claimed that they would do it in 5 games. That's why, following the win, Anthony Edwards made sure to poke fun at them for their prediction. Explore the NBA Draft 2024 with our free NBA mock draft simulator and be the GM of your favorite NBA team. However, he didn't stop there. The former one pick left Crypto.com arena, making fun of those Lakers in 5 comments, stating that they had been talking trash all week, so they would now have to put up with him. This comes on the heels of his $50,000 fine for obscene gestures against a fan who was heckling Rudy Gobert. Edwards grabbed his groin and made some NSFW comments about his manhood. Edwards has been fined $380,000 this season for multiple infractions, including gesturing towards fans, officials, and cursing out in interviews. He also has a league leading 17 technical fouls. Even so, he's signed to a 5-year contract worth a whopping $244,623,120, and he's made $86,447,537 off basketball alone, according to Spotrac, so he can most definitely afford to keep talking trash. Anthony Edwards pays the ultimate tribute to LeBron James. Still, Edwards does more than talk trash after a win. He also tipped his hat to LeBron James, calling him the greatest player of all time when asked what it meant to beat him in the first round. Edwards has always been quite open about how important it's been for him to take down his idols and those players he grew up rooting for. James went missing in action in the 4th quarter for 3 consecutive games, and he finished Game 5 with 22 points on 21 shots. He's clearly not the best player in the world anymore, but expecting him to be that guy 22 years into his career isn't realistic. Now, Edwards and the Timberwolves will move on to face either the Golden State Warriors or the Houston Rockets in the next round. Anthony Edwards isn't backing down, not from the league, not from the fans, and certainly not from the moment. Days after the NBA handed him a hefty fine for his post-game antics, the Minnesota Timberwolves' explosive young star turned up the heat again, igniting social media and the sports world with a firestorm of energy, swagger, and relentless trash talk following Minnesota's gentleman's sweep of the Los Angeles Lakers. In a playoff series where tension simmered beneath every dribble and dunk, Edwards emerged not only as the offensive engine behind the Timberwolves' success, but as a swaggering symbol of fearlessness, confidence, and unfiltered bravado. The Lakers, riding high on years of championship pedigree and marquee names, found themselves rattled, not just by Minnesota's suffocating defense and fluid ball movement, but by the unrelenting presence of No. 5. And when the series wrapped in 5 games, the final dagger coming in front of a stunned Lakers crowd, Edwards didn't celebrate quietly. Instead, he cranked the volume to 11, posing, pacing, gesturing, all without uttering a word. It was a continuation of the same body language and flamboyance that earned him a 5-figure fine just days earlier. But rather than reeling it in, Edwards leaned into the chaos, daring the world to try and contain him. The spark that lit the fire. The fine had barely cooled when Edwards reignited the storm. After Game 3, a Timberwolves victory that silenced the Los Angeles crowd, he had been hit with a league penalty for what officials deemed unsportsmanlike conduct toward fans. It was a vague and nebulous accusation, centered around his post-game exit and aggressive gestures at heckling spectators. Instead of apologizing or playing the media game, Edwards responded the only way he knew how: domination on the court and a theater of confidence off it. Game 4 saw him turn in another monster performance, dissecting the Lakers' defense with precision and explosive athleticism. Though Minnesota dropped that one in overtime, the writing was already on the wall. Game 5 would be the end, and Edwards made sure it would be memorable. From the opening tip of the closeout game, his demeanor was undeniable. He stalked the hardwood like a man on a mission, shoulders loose, eyes blazing, every movement screaming defiance. Each made shot felt like a statement. Each defensive stop like a taunt. The Lakers, particularly the veterans, tried to match the energy. But Edwards wasn't fazed. Not by the stakes. Not by the crowd. Not by the specter of fines or media scrutiny. The gentleman's sweep, with a side of swagger. It wasn't just the win that rattled the basketball world. It was how Minnesota did it. A gentleman's sweep, especially against a team with championship banners draped across its arena walls, was more than an upset. It was an exclamation mark, and in that punctuation, Anthony Edwards wrote his name in bold. By the final buzzer of Game 5, the Timberwolves had methodically taken apart one of the league's most iconic franchises. Each win had a different flavor. A clutch performance here, a defensive masterclass there. But the thread tying them all together: Edwards. His stat lines were gaudy, but it was his presence, the confidence, the edge, the raw emotional charge, that had fans talking long after the final horn. As the Lakers walked off the court, stunned and stone-faced, Edwards remained behind for a moment. No speech, no confetti shower, just a slow, deliberate stroll across the floor, soaking in the hostile energy. Cameras zoomed in on him, arms spread wide, a knowing smirk creeping across his face. As boos rained down, he didn't speak, but he didn't need to. Every gesture, every motion told the story. The Wolves were still dancing, and he was leading the parade. Social media inferno. What followed wasn't just celebration. It was a cultural moment. Social media exploded. Clips of Edwards' on-court taunts circulated within minutes. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary poured in from every corner of the internet. He had become not only the face of the Timberwolves' playoff run, but a lightning rod of modern NBA entertainment. Instagram saw a surge of posts, cryptic emojis, uncaptioned photos of iconic moments, a few not-so-subtle nods to doubters. Twitter, or X, depending who you ask, became a battleground, with Lakers fans firing back at Wolves supporters. But through it all, Edwards himself remained silent, at least vocally. His body language, his photos, his presence all did the talking. Even ESPN segments began revolving around him. Analysts debating his maturity, his edge, his role in the league's evolving culture of star power and flair. Some decried the behavior as disrespectful. Others hailed it as the next generation planting its flag. Either way, the narrative belonged to him. Fire meets ice. Inside the locker room. Inside the Timberwolves locker room, the mood was electric. Teammates laughed, danced, celebrated the franchise's most dominant playoff moment in recent memory. Yet amid the euphoria, there was no mistaking who had orchestrated the moment. Anthony Edwards wasn't just another player in the rotation. He was the heartbeat. Veterans deferred to him. Younger players looked up to him. And the coaching staff, rather than dousing the flames of his showmanship, quietly embraced it. They understood what he brought, not just in terms of points and assists, but in energy, identity, and unrelenting self-belief. There was no speech, no team address, just Edwards holding the game ball, ice packs on his knees, eyes still burning with competitive fire. He hadn't just eliminated the Lakers. He had announced himself as one of the league's most compelling characters, and he wasn't done. The NBA reacts. Back at league headquarters, the Edwards problem, or blessing, depending on who you asked, was front and center. The fine had done little to tamp down his fire. In fact, some league officials quietly admitted it may have stoked it. The line between sportsmanship and entertainment had always been blurry in the NBA, and Edwards was straddling it with unapologetic flair. Some call for further penalties, citing his repeated gestures and defiance. Others urged the league to lean into the moment, to let personalities like Edwards thrive. After all, ratings were up. Interest was skyrocketing. The NBA's postseason had found its villain-hero hybrid, and he was electrifying. The fans bite back and lose again. Perhaps the most entertaining subplot of all wasn't on the hardwood, but in the bleachers and on the airwaves. Lakers fans, incensed by the exit and Edwards' post-game antics, went on the offensive. Radio shows lit up with angry callers. Talk shows dissected his behavior. Social media was a whirlwind of mockery, memes, and edited videos attempting to diminish his triumph. But Edwards only fed off it. With every new insult came another cryptic Instagram post, another symbolic nod. His silence was loud, and his fan base grew. The Wolves, historically under the radar, now had a national spotlight. Merchandise sales were up. Jerseys were selling. And in a league driven by stars, Anthony Edwards had become must-see TV. The aftermath. More than a series win. By the week's end, Edwards was still trending. Not just because of the fine, not just because of the sweep, but because he refused to conform. In an era where media training often waters down personalities, he remained untamed, flawed, fierce, charismatic, and entirely authentic. Reporters chased quotes, but there were none to be had. Edwards declined post-game interviews, choosing instead to let his on-court performance and expressive presence do all the talking. When asked for a statement, he offered none. And yet, his message was clear to everyone watching. This is my time. Minnesota, long relegated to the fringes of NBA relevance, suddenly found itself with a figure who could carry them into a new era, not just as a contender, but as a cultural powerhouse. A franchise defined for years by misfortune and obscurity now had an identity, raw, unfiltered, and absolutely magnetic. Looking ahead, the show goes on. The Timberwolves now march into the next round of the playoffs with momentum and swagger. Edwards, still riding the high, remains the focal point. Opposing teams will prepare not only for his scoring ability, but for the psychological warfare that comes with him. He is as much a disruptor as a creator, as much a performer as a competitor. Coaches will strategize, fans will speculate, and the league will keep watching, wondering if the fire can be sustained, or if it will burn too hot. But for now, Anthony Edwards isn't cooling down. The fine didn't silence him. The criticism didn't shake him. And eliminating the Lakers only sharpened his edge.